Welcome to Module 7. Today we are getting into something absolutely critical. How do we take reconciliation from just a statement of good intention and turn it into something real, something measurable, and something we can all be held accountable for? We're going to dig into the three key pieces that make this happen: metrics, measurement, and reporting. Let's get into it. This quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It completely reframes what we're talking about. Measurement isn't just some boring bureaucratic chore you have to tick off a list. No, it's a moral and strategic imperative. It's the only tool that can actually transform words into action and prove that your sincerity is backed up by real, tangible progress. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with why measurement is really the bedrock of accountability. Then we'll get into the huge difference between measuring your effort versus measuring your actual impact. After that, we'll look at some specific, powerful metrics for reconciliation, touch on the vital topic of Indigenous data sovereignty, and then we'll wrap it all up with how to report everything in a way that creates real, transparent change. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Beyond Good Intentions. This is all about establishing a core truth. Without measurement, even the most heartfelt plans don't have the foundation they need to build lasting trust and credibility. So why is measurement such a non-negotiable? Well, it boils down to three huge things. First, credibility. Are you actually walking the talk? The data is what proves it. Second, are you getting any better? If you notice a high turnover rate among your Indigenous employees, that data forces you to ask the tough questions and fix the real problem. And third, are you a safe bet for investors? Look, today's investors are demanding transparent ESG data. If you don't have it, you're not just failing socially, you're a financial risk, plain and simple. Now, let's move on to measuring what truly matters. And this is where we run into a massive pitfall that trips up so many organizations: the habit of celebrating all the effort they're putting in instead of the actual impact they're creating. And that leads us to this central question. It's one that every single organization needs to be asking itself constantly. Are we just measuring how busy we are? Or are we measuring the actual difference we're making for communities? Because honestly, the difference between those two things is everything. This slide breaks down that difference perfectly. An input, that's your budget. It shows you're committed. An output is the immediate result, like, say, the number of Indigenous vendors you've certified. That shows you're taking action. But the outcome, now this is the one that really truly matters. This is the long-term sustained change. Are those vendors you certified seeing their average contract value actually grow year after year? That is impact. That's the metric that proves you're helping to reverse historic economic barriers. So, with that framework in mind, how do we build the right metrics? Well, the most powerful key performance indicators, or KPIs, are never just generic. They have to be tied directly to the core pillars of your organization's reconciliation action plan. And check this out. This slide shows exactly how to do it. For your relationships pillar, don't just count the number of meetings you had. Measure the percentage of projects that are built on agreements respecting free, prior, and informed consent. See? That's a shift from just a transaction to real trust. For respect, compare your Indigenous employee retention rate to your general rate. If there's a big gap, that's a massive red flag that you might have a problem with cultural safety. And for opportunities, stop just counting new hires. Track how many Indigenous employees are actually advancing into management. That shows you're building careers, not just offering jobs. Okay, let's shift gears to something that's incredibly important but often overlooked: collecting data with respect. The way we gather information cannot, I repeat, cannot, replicate the extractive, colonial practices of the past. It requires a fundamental shift in how we think about who owns and controls data. And this brings us right to the principle of Indigenous data sovereignty. Simply put, it's the inherent right of Indigenous nations to control any and all data related to their people and their lands. So for a corporation, the key takeaway is this: any data shared by a nation, whether it's about sacred sites or community wellness, it belongs to that nation. It is not a corporate asset, full stop. So how do you actually put that principle into practice? Well, you get formal, specific, and, this is key, revocable consent. You go the extra mile to protect individual privacy by anonymizing data, especially in smaller communities where it's easy to identify people. You create data sharing agreements that establish joint governance. And importantly, you help fund your partner's capacity to manage their own data. This is about empowerment, not extraction. All right, this all leads us to our final piece of the puzzle: reporting for real change. Because collecting great data is really only half the battle. How you communicate it, both inside your company and out, is what actually drives accountability and builds that social license to operate. And you absolutely have to tailor your reporting to your audience. Internally, for your board and executives, you're going to focus on detailed KPIs, risk analysis, maybe even linking performance to executive paychecks. But externally, for the public and for your Indigenous partners, the focus has to shift to radical transparency. That means you share the wins and the failures, and you amplify your partners' voices by letting them describe the impact in their own words. So, what makes a report truly credible? It is not a glossy PR document. It's a tool for building trust. It means you honestly disclose the challenges and the targets you missed. It means you include validation from your Indigenous partners, making it a shared story, not just your company's story. And it offers actionable insight. It goes beyond just spitting out data to explain what you learned and, most importantly, what you're going to do differently now. And so that really leaves us with this final thought. When you look at your own organization's metrics and reports, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Is your data just telling a story of how busy you've been, or is it telling a story of genuine, shared progress? The answer to that question will tell you if you're truly on the path of reconciliation.